Your pain is not your problem. Your silence is good afternoon, beautiful souls. Welcome to the Soft Girl Era podcast, where we unlearn survival and rediscover softness, rest, and radical joy. I'm your host, LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French. And today, I'm bringing you something that's going to shake the foundation of everything you thought you knew about grief, resilience, and what it really means to be powerful. I recently had the honor of sitting down with Sheinelle Jones, a woman whose story is rewriting the rules of leadership, love, and healing in the most public way imaginable. Sheinelle is not just a trailblazer in media, she's not just a mother of three, she's not just a woman who has survived profound loss. She is a living testament to the idea that your pain, when integrated with purpose, becomes the most potent form of advocacy this world has ever seen. Her impact on making the world a better place isn't measured in the story she tells on screen, it's measured in the way she shows up, vulnerable and whole, reminding Black women everywhere that our pain doesn't disqualify us from greatness, it amplifies it. Today, I want to share with you the insights from our conversation, insights that challenge everything we've been taught about trauma, strength, and success. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's talk about what happens when grief becomes your superpower. We've been sold a lie, a dangerous, exhausting, soul crushing lie. The lie says that trauma derails you, that loss sets you back, that grief is something to hide, to manage quietly in the corners of your life, to overcome as quickly as possible so you can get back to being productive, being strong, being the version of yourself that everyone else needs you to be. But what if that's not true? What if the deepest wounds you carry, the losses that have shattered you into 1,000 pieces, the grief that has brought you to your knees in the middle of the night when no one is watching? What if those aren't obstacles to your success? What if they are the very foundation of it? Sheinelle Jones taught me this. In our conversation, she shared something that stopped me dead in my tracks. She said that losing her husband, Uche Oye, after a long and brutal battle with brain cancer didn't just test her resilience, it amplified it. It turned her grief into a superpower for empathy and advocacy that redefined her professional success in ways she never imagined possible. Think about that for a moment. Grief as a superpower, not something to survive, not something to get over, but something to harness, to channel, to transform into a force that connects you more deeply to your purpose and to the people you serve. This is the counterintuitive truth we need to sit with today. We've been taught that personal pain and professional excellence are separate, that you compartmentalize, that you leave your trauma at the door when you walk into the boardroom, the studio, the stage. But Sheinelle's story and the stories of so many Black women who have walked this path before her tell us something radically different. They tell us that when you integrate your pain, when you let it inform your voice and your vision and your leadership, you don't just survive, you soar. Let me take you into Sheinelle's journey for a moment. She met Uche at Northwestern University. They were young, full of dreams, figuring out who they wanted to become. They dated for 8 years before they married in 2007. 8 years of building a foundation, of choosing each other over and over again. She built a career from the ground up, starting at Wix TV, moving to Fox in Tulsa, then Philadelphia, where she won Emmys for her work, and eventually landing at NBC in 2011. For over a decade, she co hosted The Today Show, one of the most demanding high pressure roles in media. Millions of people woke up to her face every single morning. She raised 3 children. She showed up every single day with grace, with professionalism, with that signature warmth that made viewers feel like she was talking directly to them, like she saw them, like she cared. And then in December 2024, she had to step away. Uche's battle with brain cancer had reached a point where she couldn't do both anymore. She couldn't be on camera smiling for millions of people and be present for the man she loved as he faced his final days. She took a leave. She chose her family. She chose her grief. She chose to be human in a world that demands we be superhuman. And here's what the world expected. The world expected her to disappear for a while, to come back quieter, smaller, maybe a little broken. The world expected her to apologize for her absence, to prove she was still strong enough, still capable enough, still worthy of the platform she had built with her own hands and her own voice. But that's not what happened. In September 2025, Shayna returned to the Today Show, and she didn't come back smaller. She came back more powerful, more authentic, more connected to her audience than she had ever been before. Because she had done something that most of us are terrified to do. She had let her grief be seen. She had shared her vulnerability on air in front of millions of people. She had allowed her pain to become part of her story, not a footnote, not a detour, but a central defining chapter that gave her voice a depth and a resonance that no amount of professional training ever could. And the response? Viewers didn't turn away. They leaned in. They felt her. They trusted her more because she had given them permission to be human too. This is what I want you to understand. Sheinelle's story isn't unique because she's special in some unreachable way. It's powerful because it reveals a truth that applies to all of us. When you stop hiding your wounds and start integrating them into your leadership, into your voice, into your work, into the way you show up in the world, you don't lose credibility. You gain it. You don't lose connection. You deepen it. Let me bring in another example because this pattern shows up again and again in the lives of Black women who refuse to let their pain define them, but instead let it refine them. Michelle Obama, former First Lady, icon, entrepreneur, author, advocate. In 2024, she lost her mother, Marion Robinson, the woman who had been her rock, her anchor, her safe place in a world that often felt hostile and unforgiving. And instead of retreating into private grief, instead of hiding behind the polished image the world expected of her, she channeled it. She wrote about it. She spoke about it in interviews with a vulnerability that made millions of people feel less alone in their own grief. She turned her pain into her podcast, into her books, into Higher Ground Productions, a media company designed to tell stories that center the voices and experiences of people who have been marginalized, overlooked, dismissed. Her memoir, Becoming, sold over 10 million copies. Her work has won Emmys. And through it all, she has redefined what Black excellence looks like by showing us that grief doesn't diminish your power, it amplifies your advocacy. Michelle Obama didn't succeed in spite of losing her mother. She succeeded because she refused to separate her pain from her purpose. She understood that lived empathy, the kind that comes from surviving something that tried to destroy you, is a form of wealth that others simply cannot replicate. And then there's Oprah. Oprah Winfrey, who survived childhood sexual abuse, poverty, and every form of skepticism and dismissal that a Black woman in media could face. She didn't hide her trauma. She didn't pretend it didn't happen. She didn't perform strength while bleeding internally. She built an empire on it. She used her story, her vulnerability, her willingness to say on national television, I've been broken too. I've been hurt too. I've survived too, as the foundation for the Oprah Winfrey Show, for OWN, for a legacy that has shifted how entire communities talk about mental health, about healing, about the possibility of transformation. 25 Emmys, billionaire status, cultural transformation that ripples through generations, all rooted in the decision to let her pain be the part of her platform. Do you see the pattern? Sheinelle, Michelle, Oprah. These women didn't succeed in spite of their trauma. They succeeded because they refused to separate their pain from their purpose. They understood something that most of us are just beginning to learn: that lived empathy, the kind that comes from surviving something that tried to destroy you, is a competitive advantage. It's a form of wealth, a form of power, a form of influence that others simply cannot replicate. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but LeAnne, I'm not Oprah. I'm not Michelle Obama. I'm not on the Today Show. I'm not a public figure with a platform and a team and millions of dollars. How does this apply to me? And here's what I want to say to that. This applies to you because you are a Black woman who has survived things that should have broken you. You have carried burdens that were never yours to carry in the first place. You have shown up for everyone: your family, your job, your community, your church, your friends, while your own heart was bleeding, while your own soul was screaming for rest, for softness, for someone to ask you, how are you really doing? And you've been told that your pain is a liability, that your trauma makes you less professional, less credible, less worthy of the opportunities you've worked so hard to create, that your grief is something to manage privately, something to keep hidden so it doesn't interfere with your productivity, your performance, your ability to keep showing up as the strong Black woman everyone expects you to be. But what if you stopped believing that? What if you started to see your survival as your superpower? What if you let your story, the real one, the messy one, the one with loss and heartbreak and resilience woven through every single chapter, what if you let that story become the foundation of your voice, your business, your leadership, your legacy? This is what Sheinelle Jones showed me in our conversation. She showed me that returning to a demanding role after losing the love of your life isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's not about putting on a brave face and acting like nothing happened. It's about channeling your pain into renewed purpose. It's about building stronger authenticity because you've stopped performing strength and started embodying it in a way that's real, that's raw, that's relatable. She showed me that building a legacy isn't about hiding your vulnerability. It's about sharing your family stories, your college sweetheart marriage, your 3 children, your decade plus tenure in a cutthroat industry that chews people up and spits them out, and letting all of that create relatable inspiration for other Black women who are trying to balance ambition and heart, who are trying to figure out how to be successful without sacrificing their souls. And she showed me that resilience compounds wealth and impact. With an estimated $25 million net worth, with a career that spans over a decade at one of the most prestigious media platforms in the world, Sheinelle's story proves that lived empathy from trauma positions Black leaders to achieve financial and communal success that others simply cannot replicate. Because when you lead from a place of integrated pain, when you let your story inform your voice, people don't just respect you, they trust you, they follow you, they invest in you, they believe in you in a way that transcends credentials and resumes and polished performances. So here's the question I want to leave you with today. The question that Shinella's story demands we ask ourselves: what if the deepest pains in your story are the very tools designed to unlock your boldest voice? Will you silence them, or will you let them amplify your legacy as a Black trailblazer? Because here's the truth, sis. The world doesn't need another version of you that's polished and perfect and pretending. The world has enough of that already. The world needs the version of you that has survived, that has grieved, that has healed in real time, and is willing to stand up and say, this is what it cost me, and this is what it taught me, and this is how I'm going to use it to make the world better. That's the version of you that will change lives. That's the version of you that will build wealth, not just financial wealth, but the kind of wealth that comes from deep connection, from trust, from being a voice that people turn to when they need to feel less alone, when they need permission to be human, when they need someone to remind them that their pain is not their problem. Their silence is. Sheinelle Jones is living proof of this. And so is Michelle Obama. And so is Oprah. And so are you if you're willing to step into it. So I'm not asking you today to share your entire story with the world. I'm not asking you to go on national television or write a memoir or start a podcast. But I am asking you to stop running from your pain. Stop hiding your grief. Stop apologizing for the fact that you've been through something that changed you, that marked you, that made you who you are today. Instead, I want you to ask yourself one question: how can I integrate this? How can I let this inform my voice, my work, my leadership, my relationships, my legacy? How can I turn my survival into something sacred, something that serves others, something that builds a future I'm proud of? Because that's what the soft girl era is really about. It's not about being weak, it's not about giving up, it's not about lowering your standards or settling for less. It's about having the courage to be soft in a world that taught you survival. It's about releasing the cape that's been weighing you down for decades. It's about redefining strength on your own terms, embracing your wholeness instead of your brokenness, and protecting your peace as a daily sacred practice. Sheinelle Jones did that, and it didn't make her smaller, it made her unstoppable. So here's my call to action for you today. I want you to take one piece of your story, one wound, one loss, one moment of survival that you've been hiding, that you've been ashamed of, that you've been told doesn't belong in your professional life. And I want you to ask yourself, what would it look like to let this be part of my voice? Not all of it, not the only thing, but part of it. A thread woven through the work you do, the way you lead, the way you show up, the legacy you're building. And then I want you to take one small step toward that today. Maybe it's writing about it in your journal. Maybe it's sharing it with someone you trust. Maybe it's letting it inform the way you show up in your business, your career, your community. Maybe it's finally saying out loud, this happened to me and it matters, and I'm not going to hide it anymore. Because the world is waiting for your voice, the real one. The one that's been shaped by fire and has come out stronger, softer, and more powerful than you ever imagined possible. Your pain is not your problem. Your silence is. So speak, heal, lead, and watch what happens when you stop apologizing for your story and start using it to change the world.